So I'm just going to be sharing with you the week by week unfolding that we are going to be journeying into for the eras of menstruation. Week 1, we begin with the menstrual phase. This is a time where we journey into the mystery, and we are working with menarche. So we'll be doing a practice, very powerful practice, where we go back into our menarche. And the reason I'm taking you into menarche is because when we are moving through the threshold of girl becoming a woman, there is a rite of passage that is taking place. And often in our Western culture, this rite of passage isn't celebrated at all. And even if it is, the stories that we take on, the stories that we carry from culture or from family, from social media, they are imprinted in the nervous system of the womb space. And so every time we bleed, we remember. And even if this is not a conscious process, it's happening. And we're going to be journeying back for the first week into our menarche. What are the stories that you were told? What stories do you carry that just aren't true about your bleed? Was there a celebration of your initiation into womanhood, or was it just discarded and dismissed? And so now we take the opportunity to rewrite this story and retell the story. The second week is moving into our pre-ovulation, which is actually a time where we're our most energetically low. We've just come out of our bleeding. It's an intense time where the body is drained, the energy is drained, the emotional body is tired. You know, we've just come out of winter, we've just come out of a death. And so the rebirthing process for me sometimes is way more intense than the bleeding itself. And this is different for every woman, and it's different every month. But I often find this process of rebirthing to be quite an initiation. So because of this, you know, the body is the most tender at this time. You're so tender, you're so soft, you're so sensitive. It's like coming out of an iboga. You've come out of this death, and now you're just like, there's so much softness in the being. And we want to be very careful, want to be very aware of what we do to the body and how we speak to the body during this time. And so I've chosen to do some DEARMOURING over this week, where we really move into working with the armouring that we are carrying, because we're protecting ourselves from something, but also it stops us from feeling the fullness of life. And this is the armouring that we've taken on when something happened to you before you were ready for it, a trauma, an abuse. It could even be a story that you carry that's not yours to carry. And so there's an armouring, there's like a holding on, there's a contracting in the body, it's happening. And I find that because we're moving from bleed into pre-ovulation, there's a moment just after the bleed where you had this opportunity before you step back into the world, where you're still in the void of bleed, where you have the choice to make consciously as to whether you want to step back into your usual patterns, or you'd like to take the opportunity to have some space and rewire, repattern. So the de-armoring is important now because we so quickly can re-armor ourselves after our bleed. We can so quickly come back into our natural alignments, the things that feel really comfortable. Go back into the habits, the compulsions, the ways of thinking, the ways of being that really don't serve, but that it's comfortable, and so that's what we know, that's what we feel safe in. So to de-armor during this time is an important practice to follow, to come back into the body, one step out into the world, but also you're still inside yourself. And it's a way of practicing how to really feel the fullness of life. Because I find that our menstrual cycle, the full menstrual cycle, really is an initiation. The whole cycle is taking you through initiatory stages. Every stage is so different. Each stage is a rite of passage, and this happens every single month, and it's like a vision quest. So to bleed consciously, and this is how we come back to love. You know, all these practices are teaching you how to come back to love, how to express and experience yourself as love, that which you are, and to feel the fullness of that. And we can only feel the fullness of that when we're really going into the pain, when we're really going into the fire of menstruation. And that's what Eros is to come back into Eros, is to move with Eros, to move with that fire, to move with the desire, to move with the pain, to meet the grief. Week 3 is ovulation, and then we work with eroticism. You know, ovulation is a very sensual, sexual, magnetizing time. It's a very erotic time. I don't know what's going to unfold in this week, but I'm very excited for it. And we'll see where our Eros really takes us during our ovulation, how to be with that intense fire, that intense buildup of heat, and going with it, but not overindulging so much to the point that you burn out, because this also can happen, that it's such a big fire when you're naturally ovulating that it can also lead to burnout if we're not careful. So here we learn to go into the fullness of that fire, but also to contain it in the body, to contain it in the nervous system. The 4th week is, for me, the most powerful week. This is when you're wrapping up as a group, but it is the premenstrual phase, and so this is where we work with gnosis, your knowing. And this, for me, is love. You know, the premenstrual time can be really challenging. There's a lot of resistance that comes up in this time. In fact, I feel resistance is the theme of our premenstrual cycle, because it is, you're dancing the tension. You just moved from this highly erotic, indulgent, up here space. Now you're immediately dropping into preparing the body for a death, preparing the body to release, preparing it for purging, menstruation. And it's dancing the tension. There's a tension between here and here. There's a big tension. So we move with resistance, and how we move with this resistance is to drop into the gnosis, the knowing of the body. It's to discern, it's to feel your inner critic, so your mind that is perpetually just intense during this time. So understanding that we can't control the inner critic, it's not going away ever. Your mind, it speeds up during the premenstrual phase. There's a lot of stuff and processing going down in psyche and the subconscious mind, and it's there for a reason. It is also a medicine. It's a powerful tool. It's a very powerful shamanic tool. And yeah, it's so during this phase we can learn through practices how to slowly begin to master this resistance. It takes probably our whole bleeding life to really master this until we reach our menopause.